So with week 1 of the NFL season officially in the books, there were a lot of highlights from around the league, which I will cover in detail in tomorrow's week 1 recap, but there were also some what the hell are you doing type plays and moments, which is exactly what I'm focusing on in today's video as I look at the worst mistakes and decisions made in the first week of football right after First up, on Thursday night, with the game on the line and the Ravens needing a touchdown, Lamar Jackson missed a wide open Zay Flowers in the end zone. The guy was open by a country mile, a city mile, and a suburban mile, yet Lamar wasn't even close in this crucial moment of the game. That is a continued theme for Lamar Jackson in big moments. Lamar now said afterwards that he was actually targeting Rashad Bateman on this play, which A, I don't believe, and B, even if that's true, that meant he missed Bateman by 2 country miles and didn't even see Zay Flowers, or realize rather Zay Flowers was going to be wide open based on his route. Then yeah, I'm a Chiefs fan, but Mahomes did throw a pretty bad INT right here, intended for Rashee Rice, but we're going to move right along quickly now. Another bad decision made in this game for the Ravens at the end of it was Isaiah Likely deciding not to wear white cleats, but oh well, too bad, so sad.
That's a great football team, and I'm sure we'll see him again at some point. He's got to wear white cleats next time. That's my advice for him.
Next up, the entire NFL is to blame for this awful decision because the matchup between the Eagles and Packers appeared as if the players were trying to run around on ice. If you thought the field conditions of Super Bowl 57 was bad, the conditions of the field in Brazil was way worse. And speaking of the Eagles, Giants GM Joe Shane wins Donkey of the Decade for letting Saquan Barkley walk after Giants owner John Mara said he would have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philly.
I'm going to have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philadelphia, I'll tell you that. I've been around enough players, but he's the most popular player we have by far.
Well, not only did he go to Philly, but he was a monster in Friday's game, scoring 3 touchdowns in his Eagles debut, carrying them to a win over the Packers in Brazil. Next up on this piss-poor list is Daniel Jones, the very definition of that word. He played absolutely awful against the Vikings yesterday, with his worst moment being this pick 6 that he threw directly to Andrew Van Ginkel on an attempted screen pass. Van Ginkel, by the way, was the same guy who sacked Daniel Jones last year, causing the neck injury that forced him to miss the remainder of the season. So I'm pretty sure Daniel Jones saw him in his nightmares last night. And here's a fun little stat. Since signing his 4-year, $140 million contract, Daniel Jones has thrown 2 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, 3 of them being pick 6s. He's thrown more touchdowns to the defense than he has on offense, which is almost unbelievable. And I feel pretty bad for Giants and their fan base right now. They are completely hamstrung by that contract. Not as hamstrung as another quarterback we're going to talk about later, but they might be wise to do something with Daniel Jones. Maybe sit him on the bench, even though Brian Daboll said he has no plans to do that at the moment. And then the Raiders were down to the Chargers 16-10 halfway through the fourth quarter, and they were facing a 4th and 1 on the Chargers' 43-yard line. Well, instead of opting to go for it, Pierce elected to punt and give the ball back to LA, who of course proceeded to march 92 yards down the field for a touchdown that completely sealed the game. And I am very surprised the Raiders didn't go for this. After the game, Pierce said they got exactly what they wanted. They punted, they had them pinned deep down the field in all 3 timeouts. But I think everybody in the world, aside from Antonio Pierce, would have gone for it. Another team in the AFC West who took a donkey-sized dump in this game against the Seahawks was the Denver Broncos, who trotted out rookie Bo Nix as their farting QB. He went 26 of 42 for 138 yards, including 2 disgusting interceptions, with the first being this one that he threw into double coverage. But how do you top an INT thrown into double coverage? By throwing another one into triple coverage, of course. This one was so bad that as soon as he threw the ball, the announcer literally said, "Oh no."
They're down 13. Nix. Oh no. Has all day, but it's intercepted.
I think this dude needs to hit up Jameis Winston for a referral to his LASIK guy, because this man cannot see to save his life. In fact, Bo Nix should have thrown 5 or 6 INTs if the Seahawks defense knew how to catch a pass. Speaking of terrible interceptions, Kirk Cousins also threw 2 picks in his Falcons debut, with his second one coming as the Falcons trailed 15-10 with less than 3 minutes to go and needing a touchdown. It was a bad one. In fairness to Kirk, it was a perfect pass. Unfortunately, it just wasn't to the right team. Now, this one might be the worst pick of the entire weekend, possibly by a landslide, or maybe even in the past decade. After blowing a 17-0 lead, Will Levis pulled an ass trick Mahomes and tried flicking the ball to his receiver as he was being sacked, and it went right to the defender who housed it and sealed the game for the Bears. This was so bad, and Levis knew it. That's why he hit both knees with his hands on his head like, yeah, I suck. Another second-year QB who sucks more than a room full of Hoover vacuums is Bryce Young. Don't be fooled by his stat line. He's even worse than his 13 of 30, 161 yards and 2 picks would suggest. He threw his first pick over the middle, which in his defense, the DB was wide open, and even crazier yet, this was the first pass of the game. The first pass of Bryce Young's 2024 season was a god-awful INT, foreshadowing even crazier things to come. He followed that up, for example, by overthrowing his receiver by 100 Isaiah Likely toes here, floating it right to the Saints defender. All in all, the Panthers are once again shaping up to be one of the worst teams in the league as the Saints sunned them, castrating the Panthers with ease. Someone else who had a god-awful game was DeShaun Watson. And no, I don't feel bad for this man. Micah Parsons batted the ball up right with Eric Kendricks coming down with the pick here on this play. Then later his own receiver batted a ball for Trayvon Diggs to pick off. It wasn't just the interceptions though. It was basically his entire performance, one of the worst I have ever seen, which is quite befitting to Watson's moral compass and character. Here's another example. Watson somehow didn't even see wide open Amari Cooper on this play here. 4th and 4, wide open. But when one of your supposed go-to receivers drops would-be touchdown passes like this, I'm not sure I would be looking his way either. With that being said, it's very safe to say the fully guaranteed contract the Browns gave him is one of the biggest F-ups in sports history. It's going to go down as one of the wildest moves made by a franchise in the entire history of the NFL. Now, if only the Browns had a capable quarterback to compete with this stacked roster full of talent. There's so many talented pieces on the Browns team, both offense and defense. You know, if they had just some guy to lead the charge, maybe even, I don't know, somebody like Baker Mayfield, that's one example that comes to mind, the Browns would be in a pretty decent spot. Anyway, there's some of the worst mistakes and decisions of week 1 of the NFL 2024 NFL season. And with that, I'll see y'all next time.